3 people are dead. A toddler is wounded. The middle of one of Seattle's biggest family festivals turns into a battlefield. And before the politicians can even finish reading the police reports, they're already reaching for the same old script. More gun control? No. Not this time, because this story isn't just about the weapon. It's about the person holding it and the system that has spent years teaching violent young offenders that the consequences probably aren't all that severe. That's the conversation Seattle desperately needs to have. If you've listened to this program for any length of time, you already know where I stand. I've worked in law enforcement. I've spent years in emergency services. I've listened to the radio traffic after violent crimes. I've heard the panic in people's voices when they're calling 911 because their world is falling apart. What I look at first isn't politics, it's public safety. The question is always simple. What policies actually protect innocent people? Because if they don't, they need to change. And what happened at Seattle Center during the Bite of Seattle wasn't just another shooting. It was another flashing warning light that something is fundamentally broken. Let's begin with what we know.
From Seattle to Los Angeles, this is Left Coast News. No apologies, just the truth.
Thousands of families gathered for one of Seattle's biggest summer festivals. Kids, parents, food vendors, tourists. Then gunfire erupted. Police say rival youth groups or gangs became involved in a dispute. 3 people died. 4 others were wounded, including a toddler. Police recovered multiple firearms, among them an illegal polymer 80 ghost gun, a Glock reportedly equipped with an illegal auto-sear, turning it into what functions as a fully automatic weapon along with extended magazines. One suspect is 15 years old. 15. Not 25, not 35, 15. This isn't a gun control story. Predictably, some people immediately concluded this proves Washington needs even more gun laws. Let's think about that for a second. The firearms already involved were allegedly illegal. The auto-sear is already illegal. The ghost gun configuration violated existing law. If someone is willing to illegally possess an automatic weapon in the middle of a crowded public festival, do we honestly believe another statute in Olympia was going to be the deciding factor? Criminals don't begin their day by opening the revised Code of Washington and checking whether they're in compliance before committing murder. The people following gun laws aren't the ones turning family festivals into crime scenes. What gangs understand. Here's what concerns me. Gangs adapt. Their business is built around criminal behavior. They study risk. They calculate consequences. If they believe a 15-year-old is less likely to spend decades in prison than a 25-year-old, who do you think they're going to recruit? Who do you think they're going to hand the gun to? That's not speculation about human nature. Criminal organizations have historically used juveniles in various roles precisely because they may face different legal consequences than adults. If the perceived cost is lower, the incentive can grow. That's a reality policymakers have to confront honestly. The problem with deterrence. One of the first purposes of criminal justice is deterrence, not revenge, deterrence. The idea that potential offenders decide the consequences aren't worth the risk. Now ask yourself, what message has Washington been sending? Years of emphasizing diversion, reducing detention, making adult prosecution more difficult for younger offenders, focusing almost entirely on rehabilitation. Rehabilitation absolutely has a place, especially for non-violent offenders. Kids make mistakes. Some deserve second chances. But there's a difference between a teenager who steals a bicycle and one allegedly participating in a gang shootout with illegally modified firearms in the middle of a crowded festival. Those aren't remotely the same conversation. Accountability matters. King County prosecutors are now asking the court to allow the 15-year-old suspect to be tried as an adult. Notice something? They can't simply do it. They have to ask. then convince a judge, then satisfy statutory requirements. That process exists because Washington law places substantial limits on transferring younger juveniles into adult court. Responsible people can debate whether those limits are appropriate. But when violent crimes involving firearms become more common, it's also reasonable to ask whether the current balance between rehabilitation and public safety still serves the public. Because the first responsibility of government is protecting innocent people, the real victims. Every time this happens, the focus immediately shifts to the offender. Why? Let's talk about the families. 3 people who lost loved ones. The parents whose children watched people die. The toddler who now carries wounds because adults allowed criminal culture to flourish. The vendors whose livelihoods were destroyed. The witnesses who may relive those moments for years. Those are the people public policy is supposed to protect. Sometimes it feels like we've inverted the priorities. The big brain plan that doesn't work. And now, right on schedule, City Hall has rolled out their shiny new multi-tiered response framework. Mayor Katie Wilson stood before the cameras to announce Seattle's official gun violence reduction strategy. If you were hoping for immediate tactical accountability, brace yourself. Here is what City Hall is proposing to keep your family safe at the next festival. First, offloading nonviolent and behavioral calls to the Civilian Care Department so SPD can focus strictly on violent crime. Second, restructuring police firearm investigations according to academic audit guidelines. Third, expanding community-led violence intervention, street outreach, and youth diversion programs. Fourth, lobbying state lawmakers for more gun control, like HB 1163, which mandates 5-year permits, safety training, and waiting periods for law-abiding citizens buying handguns. I'm sure the gang members will attend that training. And fifth, crime prevention through environmental design, better lighting, pedestrian bollards, and tactical street closures. Look, I've worked in law enforcement, I've run investigations, I know what an operational plan looks like. And I can tell you right now, this isn't an operational plan. It's an academic wish list. The reality on the ground. Let's dismantle this line by line. They want to restrict legal firearm purchases with permits and waiting periods. The suspect in custody at the Clark Children and Family Justice Center is 15 years old. He was carrying an untraceable polymer 80 ghost gun with a 33-round extended magazine. The second shooter was carrying a Glock equipped with an illegal auto-sear switch, turning the handgun into a full-auto machine gun. Every single piece of hardware in that kid's hands was already illegal under federal and state law. Do we honestly believe a 10-day waiting period on legal gun buyers in Olympia stops an active, illegal, full-auto conversion on the streets of Seattle? It's security theater. CPTED doesn't stop bullets. Then there's the proposal for street barriers, lighting, and environmental design. Bollards keep cars off sidewalks. They do not stop 2 rival groups from pulling extended mag handguns in the middle of a food court at 6 p.m. on a Sunday. Street closures don't deter teenagers who care more about clout and street beefs than they do about traffic patterns. And while civilian care teams can handle low-level administrative calls, you cannot outreach your way out of active, violent gang disputes. Voluntary diversion programs only work for kids who want to be diverted. They do absolutely nothing to stop armed juveniles who know the juvenile justice system has no teeth left to bite with. What actual safety looks like. If City Hall wanted to fix this tomorrow, here is what they would actually do. Reactivate the tools, immediately restore real-time police surveillance tools and cameras around high-traffic public venues instead of sitting on them during endless privacy audits. I don't agree with those cameras either, but in areas where gang activity is prevalent, they need to be there. Proactive field enforcement. Put specialized gang intelligence and violent crime units back on the street with the explicit mandate to disrupt high-risk juvenile groups before the shooting starts. Real accountability. Stop treating armed drive-bys and festival shootouts like teachable moments. If a teenager pulls a trigger into a crowded public event, they must face mandatory, swift, adult-level legal consequences. Until city leaders address the person holding the illegal firearm and enforce real, uncomfortable consequences, no policy framework in the world is going to protect the next crowd of families. The strategy coming out of City Hall isn't designed to stop criminals. It's designed to make politicians look busy while the same broken system keeps producing the exact same tragic results. This debate shouldn't be reduced to slogans. It isn't simply lock them all up, although that would probably help. It isn't simply ban more guns. The city needs to address the real problems: illegal firearms trafficking, gang recruitment, enforcement against repeat violent offenders, support for at-risk youth before they join gangs, and whether our juvenile justice system provides enough accountability to deter the small percentage of juveniles committing the most serious violent crimes. I can tell you right now, it doesn't. If we refuse to have that conversation because it's politically uncomfortable, we'll be back here again. Another crime scene, another vigil, another press conference, another family shattered. The laws of physics don't care about political ideology. Neither do bullets. At some point, our policies have to be judged by one simple standard. Are innocent people safer? If the answer is no, which it is, then we owe the public the courage to change course. Do you think Washington's juvenile justice laws strike the right balance between rehabilitation and accountability for violent offenders? Or should they be changed? If you made it this far, you're exactly the kind of person we built this channel for. Left Coast News exists to cut through the noise and bring you straightforward analysis of the stories shaping Washington, the Pacific Northwest, and beyond. If you found this video valuable, please subscribe and follow us wherever you get your content, including YouTube, Rumble, Brighteon, BitChute, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you'd like to help support independent journalism, you can also join us on Patreon. Patreon is free for now. You'll find the link in the description below. And if you think this story matters, share it with your friends and family. That's one of the biggest ways you can help this channel grow. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you agree with this analysis, or do you see it differently? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching Left Coast News.